Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast. Good to have everybody watching on Facebook and listening along on podcast app of your choice. I'm Will Stewart, joined as always by the CEO of His Way at Work, Chris Patton. Hey, Chris.
How are you, Will?
Good.
Good to see you. Yeah, today we have an amazing guest. I know we say that a lot, but Michele Ford is the Executive Director of Columbia Forest Products Foundation. And I'll let her tell you a little bit more about exactly what that means and what it is that she does at Columbia Forest Products. But I am very impressed with her every time I speak with her. Had a chance to do that several times, and I think you're going to enjoy this.
Yeah, I am just looking forward to the chat. So welcome, Michele. So glad to have you on this episode.
Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here and to share some of my experiences with you.
So let's just get everybody acquainted with who you are, who your company is, and just kind of talk about that a little bit. But just tell us the big bird's eye view of the company you work for and the foundation, and just kind of how all that works together.
Certainly. Well, the company's name is Columbia Forest Products. We were established in 1957. One of the things that makes us unique is that we are an ESOP company. So everyone here is an owner of the company. I've been with the company approximately 16 years now. We always had a heart for giving, and that was very evident to me when I came here. I tell the story of how my plan was to just join the company for 5 years, maybe gain a little extra knowledge, and then move on to the next location. But little did I know that the Lord had plans for me to establish myself and to thrive here. So I was fortunate enough to work with a gentleman named Brad Thompson, who was, by all accounts, a very moral man with a great Christian heart. And I remember early on wondering, wow, could this really be him? And quickly I realized that what you see with Brad is what you get. I remember going to him one day and telling him that my son had health issues and that I needed to take some time off. And he said, well, what can I do for you? And I said, just pray for us. Well, he stopped me in my tracks and called me into his office and closed the door. And we literally prayed together. And that shocked me because most people say, I'll pray for you. And you think, oh, that's just a platitude, you know.
Sure.
But no, that wasn't the deal. You know, we held hands and we prayed together. And I left with a sense of calmness about me and knowing that someone other than me and my immediate family was also praying for my son. But I also recognized the blessing that I was working for a person who shared my own values. So.
And this company's not a small operation. It's not a little factory somewhere in the corner. Give us a sense for everybody that's not familiar with the market share and the size of kind of what you guys do.
Well, we're considered the largest manufacturer of hardwood and plywood in North America. We currently have 8 mills throughout the U.S. and Canada. We have international presence as well. So there are roughly between 2,000 and 2,500 employees in Forest Products. It feels like a mom and pop shop to me, but I guess that's because we care for one another. It's not until I talk to other people that I really understand the scope of our business.
What do you think the thing is? You said, you were going to just do 5 years, and then go on to the next thing. What is the thing other than just God's leading in your life, but that made you want to stay and want to say, I want to be a part of this for a longer time?
Well, I think without a doubt, it was the way that we cared for one another. When people come here, there's an intangible thing that you can't really explain. You feel like you're part of a family. And that's evident in our tenure. I've been with the company 16 years, but I'm still considered a young kid here. We have people who do 30, 40, 50 years at Columbia. Now, obviously, Columbia is doing something right. If you have people that feel that loyal and feel that at home, what you're doing. I also know that for me personally, it was more important that I felt fulfilled in my job. I can go anywhere and collect a paycheck, but I need to get up in the morning and be excited about what it is I'm about to do.
That's powerful. Now let's talk about the foundation a little bit, and talk a little bit about kind of, because I know you're heavily involved with that, and there's a lot that's going on there. But just kind of walk us through the very beginning and of your involvement and kind of to today.
Sure. Well, initially I was the CEO's assistant, who happened to be Mr. Thompson, and he had attended a conference back in 2012, 2013, where he heard Peter Freisler speak. And Peter was telling about his journey to instilling ministry in his business. And Brad brought back the booklet that he received at that conference, and it must have laid a seed in his mind. And a year or so later, he said, Michele, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to start a foundation at Columbia Forest Products. You know, we already care for one another, but maybe we can do something a little more formal. And he went on to say, you know, how he envisioned it, what he thought. We brainstormed a while. And then he surprised me and he said, and I see you as the director. And I was like, really? You know, I was flattered, and then I was scared. And then he said, you already do the job. We're just formalizing it. And it dawned on me that, in fact, I had been doing it, but just not quite formally. We also recognized that we only had one opportunity to do this right. And so instead of trying to recreate the wheel, he suggested that I reach out to Peter's group, which was formerly entitled His Way at Work. And so I placed a call and got a hold of Peter and was introduced to some of the other people who worked with His Way at Work. And we invited them to our offices in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I remember them coming in. Actually, I remember them being surprised that we were ready to move as quickly as we were ready to move. I think that we had already done the soul searching and had made the commitment internally that we were going to make this happen. We just needed their guidance to make sure that we did it correctly. You know, we had to convince a lot of people here at Columbia that this was the thing to do. And that meant that if we stumbled at all, we'd be in trouble.
What are some of the challenges of starting a organized, put together, formalized way of caring for employees? Because I know, I mean, it's a huge logistical operation, because you're not just one shop in one location. I mean, there's a lot of souls all over the place, across the world even. So what was some of those challenges that you faced just getting this thing up and running?
Well, we wanted everyone to experience the same thing. So we spent the first year kind of establishing our training mechanism, making sure that we didn't get beyond ourselves. We knew what program we wanted to introduce at each mill. We worked diligently to get buy-in from every mill prior to the rollout. And once we actually started the rollout, the word of mouth from mill to mill to mill made the introduction of our foundation and our caring teams very simple. The problem we had was that the mills were calling saying, hey, when are you coming out here? We're ready for a caring team. We heard what you did in Presque Isle, or we heard what happened at our Old Fort Mill. And I had a gentleman from His Way at Work that traveled with me for about 16 months as we went from mill to roll out our caring teams. You know, let me back up a little bit. We decided we wanted to have a formal charitable foundation. So that meant that we had to get with our accountants, our attorneys to establish that. We wanted to be sure that we could give our employees support and there not be any tax ramifications for them. So by doing this through our foundation, we knew that they were covered. We knew that we'd be able to give in the community the way that we wanted to give, and that there would be no problems with that. So after establishing that, we got in touch with His Way at Work. and figured out what was the best way to roll out our programs at each of our mills. I remember being invited to attend a caring team meeting at Polydeck, where we first understood exactly what caring teams did. And coming away from that thinking, oh my God, this is going to be much bigger, much greater than I even imagined. We already had corporate chaplains of America established at each of our sites. We met with our chaplains to tell them that we needed them to be team members with us as we rolled out our caring teams. Each of them attended our caring team rollout meetings at each of the mills. They attend our caring team meetings when they're able. So we had buy-in all across the organization.
That's incredible.
Michele, let me take you back a moment. You said something a minute ago where you went and visited the caring team meeting at Polydeck, and you came away instantly saying this is much bigger, grander, more involved, a bigger impact than you thought going in. Give me some specifics around what you saw. What was it about what they were doing that you guys have since put in place that was either outside of your expectations or beyond or surprised you? What was it specifically about that visit that shocked you?
Okay. Well, first of all, it was the diversity of the group. You know, everyone from the mill was represented. I understood that it wasn't just the management team leading this, I don't want to say fight, but this ministry. And it was important that everyone was involved. They talked about one gentleman approaching them with an idea about a passion he had. I think that he was into antique cars and was planning a car show. And really didn't know how to go about doing that, but he reached out to his caring team members who all said, well, I have an expertise in A. I know how to get B to happen. Let me help you and we can do C. And what the group accomplished was so much more powerful than what one person accomplished. That's when I understood how this could multiply. You know, there were many of us back here at home who had pet projects that we participated in, but me going to Habitat alone didn't have the same impact as me and 10 of my colleagues coming to a Habitat site and literally putting a roof on. And that's what the advent of this program did for us. You know, we were allowed to dream much bigger than we initially thought we could.
And you made a key point earlier during that answer in that this was not management. This was a diverse team of entry-level employees in the company that operate machines, that sweep floors, that, you know, do filing. This is not upper level. And there's some magic in that. Speak to specifically, what does that do differently than a top-down approach?
Well, I think for us, it helped us identify talents that we didn't realize we had amongst our hourly employees. A number of employees, you know, they say cream rises to the top. Well, you have to look at it in order to find it. And so we found quite a few superstars amongst our ranks. People who have moved into our management development teams that likely wouldn't have we not been exposed to them in this manner. We've had people who were very quiet and reserved to become boisterous and make us aware of the passions that they have. I think that, you know, it's important that management be involved and be supportive, and that's a key part of this program. Sure. Management has got to support the caring teams so that when they tell you they're working on this project or they need time away to do this, that they understand they're not going to be penalized for it, that no one's going to look down upon them because they're doing this. And for us, that was critical to the success of the program.
So let me ask a dumb question. And to all those that are listening, this may have crossed your mind, but Michele, this is the dumb question. Do the results that you just described impact the business part of Columbia Forest Products? Specifically, you just said we have latent talent and ability in our company that we didn't know we had, This system allowed that to start to show in ways we didn't expect. And now we've got people moving into management and leadership development out of positions we didn't really look for them originally in. Does that strengthen your management core? Does it strengthen your bench? Does it give depth to the company? Does that impact the business part?
Sure it does. Absolutely. I mean, think about turnover. You can avoid turnover because people feel at home and valued. The money spent or saved there is immeasurable. We also find that that's a recruiting ground as well. You know, when unemployment is low and it's hard to find great talent, if your people are telling their friends that this is an excellent work, you know, you might want to consider looking at Columbia. It helps our bottom line. You know, I have to be honest and tell you, we never really had a problem with longevity at the company, and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that we were an ESOP organization.
Sure.
But I think that the quality of talent that we're able to recruit and keep is definitely affected by the foundation, our caring culture, you know.
Yeah, that's excellent. So something going all the way back to the beginning that you said, and I think all of this ties in together. You said, Will said this is not a small company, right? This is 2,000 to 2,500 employees scattered across U.S., Canada, and even beyond. And you said, yeah, but it still feels like a mom and pop organization because we feel like a family. Now, there are business owners and leaders out there right now listening that have tried for years in a company that may only have 60 employees or even 150 employees, much, much smaller. They've tried to get that family dynamic going, and they still can't figure out the secret sauce. In a much smaller company, they cannot get that. They can't crack the code for making that company feel like and making the employees feel like part of a family. How would you speak to them? What do you think it is about what you guys do that has created that atmosphere that even in a smaller company, they could do something similar?
You know, I think what we did was to recognize that you stand beside people every day who have needs and challenges that aren't met, who are likely suffering in silence. And I think with us starting our caring teams, we've encouraged our employees to reach out to their brothers and sisters. You know, reassure them that this is more than just a job or a paycheck. If you hurt, I hurt. If I can help you, I want to help you, you know? But to much is required. And we need to remember that, you know, as business owners and leaders. You know, it's not enough that our bottom line looks great if our employees are suffering, you know. And I also think you either really have the heart for this or you really don't.
This is this very true. So a couple things there. You if your bottom line looks great but your employees don't feel cared for, loved, safe, needs aren't met, then there's a problem, right? But if you do this, if you take the time, whether it's through His Way at Work or other channels, you develop this caring team idea, entry-level employees with a budget, loving on and caring for their fellow employees. One of the fears that we hear from CEOs in that is this going to cost me money? Am I going to lose money, either lose profit, or is it going to, you know, how much money do I have to dedicate toward this? You know, I'm not sure I can afford this. How would you respond to that?
Well, that's never been our experience. What we did was to initially fund our caring teams from corporate funds, but we opened it up to our employees and told them, if you'd like to donate, you can. And for every dollar that you donate, the company will match, dollar for dollar. So that tells the employee who can maybe only afford $1 per paycheck, that still matters, because there's no amount that's too small. And in terms of giving a budget to hourly employees or mid-level management employees and being concerned that they're going to be spendthrifts, that's not the experience. These people are more conscientious about the money we spend and how we spend it than upper management would ever be, or at least that's been our experience.
You know, that's funny. I hear that a lot, Michelle. The CEO going into this system thinks this team is just going to be, they're going to blow through the budget in 2 months that I've given them for a whole year. How am I going to handle that? I can't afford to keep feeding this. And the truth is, what you've said, this is not just your experiences across the board. These people, it's probably the first time most of them have had the stewardship of someone else's money, and they take it so seriously. And they're almost at the very beginning, we're having to push them to even be more giving, right? Because they're kind of concerned, they're not real sure, kind of like you said at the very beginning of your tenure, is this real? Can we really do this? But then the other part of this that I think you've already made clear is, as you go down this path, the outstanding and unbelievable, surprising benefits that come out of a system like this more than make up for financially what you have to put in the beginning. It's not even it's the last thing in the world that you or that Brad Thompson or even Greg now is worried about is, does our giving cost us financially? Is it causing us financial heartache or stress because we're giving too much? And that's not the case, right?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, Greg and I often talk about, COVID in 2019 being a very difficult time. And we recognize that it is and it was. And we were fortunate that our company has made it, through the past year. But we're also convinced that the reason why we made it was because we had a heart to give, that we understood that we had a responsibility in our community to help where we could, to help our employees, to entrust them with the funds of our. We've had a number of our vendors who heard about our caring teams to come to us and say, this is great, we want to donate. We never expected that. We never solicited that. But if our doing this introduces other businesses to the prospect of caring for their employees this way, this is immeasurable. Again, this isn't something that's going to show up on the bottom of the spreadsheet, but this is what eternal return on investment looks like.
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask, and I'm going to shut up for a minute, and Will's probably got some other questions, but you made the statement, you've got to have a heart for this, and either you do or you don't. Tell me what you mean by that. What's the danger if you really don't have a heart for this?
If you really don't have a heart for it and you really don't trust your employees to handle this program, your natural tendency is going to be to try and micromanage it and to control it yourself. And if that's the case, then you're missing the boat of opening yourself up to other avenues in your community that might need your attention. Because I only know what I know. Right? Bob experienced something completely different. And if I'm not open to letting Bob express himself and tell me about the needs in his community, I'm missing the boat. I'm absolutely missing the boat.
That's great.
There's a lot of CEOs that might say, hey, we already have a caring culture in our company. We have some good values. I'm always upbeat whenever I'm talking to people. I make sure I hire good people. We have a company picnic. There's things that we do. If we ever hear about someone having a need, just kind of going back to even the start of how you guys started everything. A lot of CEOs will be like, it sounds like you guys had a lot that you were doing very well before the foundation was created and before everything was kind of formalized and processes were made. Some CEOs might say, hey, we're doing enough. We've gone this far. We're good. We don't need to go through all the hassle of creating a team and, assigning Michelle to this project and having her 16 months going across the, traipsing all over the world trying to figure this thing out. Why is it important to formalize this and create systems and processes in place?
Well, Michelle won't always be at Columbia Forest Products. I look at this as my legacy, a legacy that I'm very comfortable that will continue beyond my being here. I think that You know that you have got to make investments and take risks in order for investments to pay off. You do it every day in your business. Why not take a risk on this? You know, this sort of ministry will never let you down. It just won't, you know. And I'm so very thankful that when Greg Craig became the CEO of Columbia Forest Products, he had the same central core values that Brad had, that Columbia displayed. It made the transition for us very easy. I think that we actually attribute how well we're doing to our willingness to give. You know, the Bible tells us that we'll receive tenfold. You know, and the greatest gift is giving. If you've ever experienced changing one person's life because of something you did, you know, that's not a feeling you get from buying anything. That's not a feeling you get from your paycheck increasing. You know, that's only something you experience when you open your heart and you give back to someone else. There were a number of my colleagues who had never experienced that. So I really appreciate when we go out on our service activity days and I watch the faces of people who maybe for the first time are donating their time, and then let them come back to me later and they'll say, man, this was the greatest day of my life. And I'm not exaggerating. I have heard that statement, you know, and things like, I'm going to take my kids next week to the soup kitchen. Absolutely. Take your children. Now is when you need to teach them to give back, you know?
Yes.
Don't wait until they're 30, 40 years old to experience this. So I'm thrilled that our caring teams have allowed us to do this. And yes, I traipsed all across the country. Our meetings are in some very desolate locations. I'm not gonna lie, guys. None of them are easy to get to. And many I hadn't visited until we started this program. But I go in there and I'm looking at faces and I'm unable to read how they feel about this program that we're starting to begin. But within 5 to 10 minutes of explaining what it is we want to do, I see the heads nodding. I see the recognition in their eyes. I see hearts changing, you know. And I walk away from there and I'm like, yes, thank you, God. You know.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Because I think the main point here that we want, sometimes we just assume that it's there, everybody gets it, but I want to bring it out here. Caring and loving on employees just for the sake of the caring and loving with no eternal picture in mind is simply relieving temporary pain or discomfort. Yeah. But when we care and love for them, one, in a way that honors God, but because of our desire to point them to God, then there's that eternal component that brings the extra value, brings the benefits that you're describing. And that is why we're doing what we're doing, right? I can help someone in a way that alleviates their pain or their suffering in that situation. But if I don't bring them a truth, if I don't share with them at some point why I'm doing it, then all I've done is alleviate a temporary situation. Yeah. And what we're trying to do is do this with a heart that says, God, we're going to do it to honor you, but we're also going to do it in a way that eventually, as they ask, whether they ask us or they ask the chaplain or something pops up, what's going on here, there's a chance to share the good news. So yeah, exactly. I know you guys are doing that. I know Corporate Chaplains is very, very direct in that. So well done on that, Michele.
You know, guys, when we look at employee giving, and I really didn't talk about this much, but we found that there were people who were going home and not sure that the lights were going to be on or that they had enough food to feed their children. That broke my heart to know that we have working, I don't want to call them poor, but people who had challenges who work every day just like I did. So when we started helping our employees and reaching out to maybe pay electric bills or make sure that the water wasn't turned off, and I'm literally calling electrical companies to make these payments, and I explained to them that, no, I'm not a homeowner. I'm calling on behalf of our company to do this for our employees. The folks on the other end of the phone line are touched by this. They're like, I can't believe that your company cares for your employees this way, that you'd be willing to do this. And I'm calling to say, well, I know that the light's going to be cut off tonight. There's no way for me to get you a check today. However, I will overnight for you tomorrow. And many times I've been told, don't pay that extra expense. We trust you. We'll make sure the lights aren't turned off. You just means. So I come away from those interactions understanding that that's another life that we've touched by this as well.
Yeah, that's
powerful.
When you said earlier that the vendors, some of your actual vendors, these are companies, not Columbia Forest Products, but people you do business with, contributing money to a program that you guys use to care for your employees.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, stop and think about that. These are people that you're typically taught, we got to squeeze $1 out of them in our pricing or in our negotiating with them, and they're freely giving you money to go into this foundation. That is, don't let that slip by if you're listening.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I guess I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening.
So cool.
And caring and loving on people is infectious. It really is. And it spreads. And if you do it with a genuine heart and you do it with a pure heart, it can have that 10x multiplier for sure. Are there any other good stories, stuff that you've heard, ways that people's lives have been impacted through this? I know you probably have, hundreds if you sat down and thought about it, but are any few just top of mind?
I remember a lady in our community who had a kitchen whose floor had rotted. And this poor woman couldn't really cook. She had to rely on the kindness of others in terms of hot meals. And it was only because we were there washing windows at her house that we found out that she had a rotten kitchen floor. So no one said anything to her at the time, but we brought that need back to our caring team. And the caring team figured out what they needed to do to try and help her out. So we went back and we said, Miss May, we recognize that you initially needed help cleaning your windows, but we understand that you more importantly need your floor repaired. And so we have a number of tradesmen at our mill and individuals who have talents beyond what we know. And we got together, we went to our local Home Depot and asked them would they be willing to donate supplies along with the supplies that we could provide, which they agreed to readily, and we went back and we repaired this woman's floor. So here's someone who asked for an immediate need, but we weren't satisfied with just doing that. We recognized that she needed additional caring, and so we did that. We started soup kitchens, we provided clothing, we put roofs on buildings, we've gone on mission trips to Ecuador. The list just goes on and on. Many times I sit here at my desk and I'm pulling together a PowerPoint presentation for a quarterly meeting, and I can't help but tear up, looking at all of the lives that we've touched. And none of it was a burden on us because we're doing it as a group, Instead, it's a blessing to be allowed to touch these people's lives in that manner.
That's awesome. Just a point of clarification, Michele. We've talked about this, and I understand the difference, but I want to make sure the listeners are hearing this. We've talked about the fact that these caring teams are established. The money is initially funded by the organization, by Columbia Forest Products, and there are some employee donations as well as vendors. And the idea initially is you're caring for and loving on employees and their needs, but you're also mentioning needs outside in the community. So how does the caring team, or how do the caring teams at Columbia Forest Products decide between internal and external? How do you guys differentiate that in the budget? Just an overall sense of what you're doing, because I know most caring teams we deal with, they're working with both. They're initially hitting the internal needs, but then they can't help but take it externally once in my mind, the saturation point hits and we're starting to care for our people, they start wanting to go outward. But share with us how you guys kind of discern that at Columbia.
Okay. Well, our caring teams are given a budget. We determined that a certain of our budget money should be used towards employees, towards their families, towards our community. And then it's left to them to determine what those needs are. So we will invite individual agencies into our offices to make a plea for assistance, or we'll encourage our employees to be aware of needs throughout our organizations and throughout the communities that we have representation in. For many of, remember I mentioned that our mills are in very small communities. In many of those communities, we are the largest industry, and we feel a responsibility to those communities to care for them. So our caring teams focus not only on our employees and our family members, we're driven and we're directed to also care for the communities in which we live. And so that's a part of our mandate.
Yeah, that's great. And the caring teams themselves, these employees make those decisions based on the budget and the breakdown. That's great.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. Everything you guys have been able to do and how God's used you in these communities and just to change lives. What's one piece of advice that you wish you'd been given 10 years ago?
It was actually just to be bold, don't hold yourself back. Don't be afraid to dream, And what I learned is that while I thought my dreams might have been audacious and beyond the realm of possibility, there are many people who have the same dream. They may not have had the courage to talk about it, but they had the dream. And when things feel overwhelming, remember how you eat an elephant, and it's one bite at a time. Just one bite. If I can accomplish one thing today, then I'm one step closer to my overall goal.
I love that. That's great. What's a book or a resource that you'd recommend that you lean upon, just day to day for your life, and you recommend to others?
Well, for me, guys, it's the Bible. It's really simple. It's the Bible. I spend my time with my Bible. Whenever I'm uncertain or unsure, I turn to it. When I need strength or courage, I turn to it. And the other resource would be the other companies that I'm aware of that also have caring teams. All of them are very generous with their time and with their experiences when we started this. And I like to reciprocate. I never turn anybody down when they seek my assistance when starting a formal caring program at their organization. I'm happy to help.
That's incredible. And that's a great point too. If you are a CEO or somebody part of a management leadership team in a company, you're not alone. The chances are very good that there's a lot of companies out there that are doing something similar, facing similar issues. And, Columbia Forest Products has proven that they can do it with a big, diverse, spread out organization. And we've talked to plenty of companies that are smaller that can do it as well. So it's absolutely doable. And you can definitely do it no matter your size or your situation. Michele, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your generosity. What do you think's the big takeaway from the day? What do you think of the people who are listening, entrepreneurs, CEOs, leadership? What should they take away from this podcast?
Well, I hope what you heard was make a move. Don't for the ideal time, because that'll never come. You just have to make that first step. Find the courage, find the strength, make the time, make this a priority, and do it. You will never be sorry that you did. You may be sorry if you don't, but you'll never be sorry that you embarked upon this process.
That's great.
I love it. It's just been incredible. It's been just inspiring, and I feel like we could spend another hour just hearing stories and talking about your journey. So thank you so much for spending the time with us and taking the time to share your thoughts on this matter.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you for listening. Hope you found some value in today's discussion. If you're inspired and you'd like to learn more, His Way at Work has a number of resources and tools for you. Just check us out at hwaw.com. If you're new here and you'd like to check out more episodes, just go to Facebook or to any podcast platform and make sure to subscribe there. Or if you know somebody that might find value in what we're talking about, feel free to share with them and point them in our direction. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.